Good evening, everyone. Good to see everybody. Isn't it great to be in the house of the Lord tonight? Amen. So we're gonna warm up before we pray. We're gonna sing a little song just to kind of get you in the mood, right? So let's open up our hymnals and turn to 607. 607. And sometimes, you know, the title of this song is What a Day That'll Be. And amen for that, right? What a day that'll be. 607, we're going to sing 2 verses. God, nothing is beyond your power. Nothing you've shown me through your word that you keep your promises. So I know I can have hope. Please encourage me despite situations that seem so bleak and broken. Help me share your hope with others. In Jesus' name, and all of us said together, amen. All right, so I'm going to sing another song for you, and you're welcome to sing along, but I'd like for you to socialize a little bit while we're singing, right? No, everybody likes to go and shake a few hands. You sit down too quick. See, I didn't tell you to sit down. Anyway, that's okay. If you want to sing with me, it's page 230, and we're going to sing, but we're going to do something fun. Anybody knows if I'm singing here, I try to do something a little different. So I promise I'm not going to make you whistle this time. See, you realize you didn't come every Sunday night. You could be whistling music. But tonight we're going to do the old rugged cross while you're up shaking hands. But on verse 2, we're going to hum it. The old, right? You can do it. All right, everybody stand and shake hands, and if you want to sing with me, you're welcome to sing. 3 verses. Hum the second one. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the end of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross where the dearest and best to wear into
Well, good evening. Tonight is a special service. We have special guests with us tonight, and Dave and Jill Holmes are, well, we were just talking, live in Texas, native Texans, and but also kinfolk up here. I knew that you guys, I thought were cousins, but I didn't realize your dads were identical twins. And so what a blessing to be able to reconnect with family. They are with Mission Aviation Fellowship, and they are in, is it pronounced Nampula, Mozambique. Dave is a pilot there, and he's a mechanic, and he flies medical teams, medical supplies into very remote areas there, and he'll tell you more about that. And Jill is also a part of the ministry there and has some responsibilities with international security management with, I guess, teams, not just your team, but all of the teams with Mission Aviation. Missionaries are in very risky areas where it can be dangerous, and so you have to do, I guess, risk assessment, things like that for those teams and have plans in place. That's why we support mission agencies, because mission agencies can do things that local churches cannot do. If a missionary has to be evacuated out or something, they have plans. If they called us and said, get us out of here, we'd be like, what do we do? We'll send Doug over, but that would not end well. So we praise the Lord that we can partner with mission agencies. And so they're going to share some of their highlights and things of that nature. And after they share about their ministry, at the end, we'd like to have a little bit of time where you can ask any questions that you might have for them. And Jerry will have a microphone, and he can come and we can get that that question on the mic so that our folks who are watching via our live stream, and good to have you with us as well tonight, so they can hear those questions. So I'm going to invite up and let you have an opportunity to greet and welcome Jill and Dave Holmes. Let's thank them for being here.
Well, it is really fun to be back with y'all. We came through, I think it was either 4 or 5 years ago. It was right at the beginning of COVID, and I think it might have even been the first week that the church decided to just do online. So we actually presented to the church, but it was an empty sanctuary here, and we were speaking online. So it's really fun to be back with you again. And some of you may not know, but you guys have been supporting us for 13 years now that we've been in Mozambique. So we want to start out by just saying thank you very much for the financial support that you've provided for us over the years. And I like the way that, I'm not sure who the gentleman was that was doing announcements this morning, but he stated that you guys are part of the ministry in Mozambique. And Jill, whenever we speak to our supporters, we really try to convey that this is a partnership, and your support means that you are part of the ministry in Mozambique, and the Lord they're using us physically there, but you are a part of that ministry, and we just want to thank you very much for your support over the years. So next slide. Here. So wanted to clear up, you may see in some of our communications Ambassador Aviation. And so I want to just clear up what that kind of presents some confusion sometimes. In 2013, the government of Mozambique said you have to become a commercial business or you have to leave Mozambique. So we decided to jump through all the hoops that it took to become a licensed business there. And they also told us you could no longer use the name MAF, so we had to come up with a new name. So we are still MAF as an organization there, but we chose the name Ambassador Aviation, where in 2 Corinthians, I believe it's 5:20, where we want to be ambassadors of Christ where we serve. So that's how we selected our name. We have 2 aircraft. This is a picture of our hangar, and we have 2 aircraft. The one on the right is a Cessna 206, It's a 6-seat airplane, and then the one on the left is larger. It's a Cessna 208, usually called a Caravan, and it is a 14-seat airplane. And I just fly whichever one the mission calls for, so I kind of go back and forth. Next slide. So MAF's vision is to see isolated people changed by the love of Christ, and we do that through our mission, serving together to bring help, hope, and healing through the use of aviation. And the together also is part of, you're included in that together. Next slide. Give you an idea of where we're based. Mozambique is located in the far southeast corner of Africa. It's about twice the size of California, and so you can kind of see how it's long and skinny, so you could almost imagine 2 Californias stacked on top of each other, give you kind of a frame of reference. And then, as the pastor mentioned, we are in the northern part in the city of Nampula. Next slide. We have ministry in extremely different areas, so we go all the way from urban city area where we're based, all the way out to wild bush of Africa. And you can see by the airplane there, that's the traditional baobab tree in Africa. Next slide. This past year has been a time of celebrations for our program. Some of you may know that we had a pilot that was falsely detained. He was in a maximum security prison for 4 months down in the capital city, and it was related. He was doing a cargo flight for a Christian orphanage that's located up in the northern part of the country. Initially, it was baby formula and like a year's supply of vitamins for one of the staff at the orphanage that kind of drew the attention when they were passing the cargo through the scanner. So the police initially took him to the police station and thought it was drugs, and quickly they determined that no, that's not correct. So then someone accused him of supporting terrorism because the cargo load was going to the orphanage located in a province where there is Islamic extremist activity going on. So that was quite a saga for our team. He was in prison for 4 months. And then after that, he was somewhat like house arrest for, I think, another 7 months before he got his passport back. And so you can go to the next slide. And this is going to be a short video that shows you our national staff were deeply impacted by this situation. And the day that Ryan was able to travel back, he was released from prison and traveled back to Nampula where we were at. This is a video where he just walked over from the airport terminal to our hangar, and our national staff greeted him. Kind of shows you the love that our Mozambican staff have for our team as well. And then finally, when he got his passport back, the picture in the top right, we got his family back to the United States as quickly as we could, just for his security and to wait for the process to end. This past November, we're happy to report that the case is finally closed. So it was almost 2 years to the day that it first occurred that the case is finally dropped. And Ryan and Annabelle have a new baby, and they're getting ready to return to Mozambique probably in April or May of this year. So that's pretty exciting. Next slide. One of the funnest things to celebrate this year was the arrival of a new family on our program. A very young family, the Brumleys. And not only has Josh been a huge asset to the workload on our program, but this family has just brought a ton of joy to us. So this will be a little video that's going to kind of give you an idea of that. So focus on the little girl. This is Riley standing right next to the hangar door. And this situation is the first solo operational flight that her dad, Josh, did. And that usually represents roughly 10 years of preparation from the time someone decides, I want to serve in mission aviation, you go to school, get all your license, you build your flight hours, you do Bible school, usually language school, support raising, you're finally on the field, you have a little bit more training, and then you actually get to do your first flight. So that's what this situation is. And you can play the video and watch Riley's excitement here. And that is just characteristic of the joy that this family's brought to our program. So it's really fun to have them. So our national staff always love these events because they try to make it creative. We do a little baptism ceremony for the pilot. And you can see in that picture on the left, Riley has a little green bucket. So they sent Riley out to the airplane to throw some water on her dad. And he thought that, okay, that was it. What he didn't know is when he walked through the hangar door, Nelson was hiding up in the rafters and caught him with a big bucket when he came in. So that's always fun. Next slide. We also celebrated 25 years of MAF in Mozambique this year. That was quite a milestone. And the picture on the left, that couple in the top left, that's Dave and Gerd Lepoitoven, and they are who started the program initially, and they're still serving. Dave is just aged out of being a pilot, but he's still serving there as a mechanic as long as they can. Next slide. We also celebrated expansion of our MOSMED program. MOSMED is a direct ministry that our team has where we take medical professionals out to extremely remote villages and provide medical care, but also building relationships so that eventually we can have the privilege of sharing the gospel. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but we expanded to 3 new locations this past year. The top picture is the village of Matunda Vela. It's out in the northwest part of Mozambique. And then the bottom one is kind of north central. This is at the Lugenda Wildlife Camp. So we partner with wildlife organizations that manage areas within a wildlife refuge. And I was trying to give you, looked up a kind of a land area reference. This wildlife refuge is about 3/4 of the size of West Virginia. So it's quite a large refuge. And different organizations manage different zones within the park. And so we partner with these organizations and provide flight service for them for their daily operational needs, but also they are our access to the villages within their concession that they manage. So the bottom one, the gentleman on the far right, his name is Derek, and he's the director of that conservation organization. He's been there about 25 years, as long as MAF has, and Dave Lepoitoven, when he first arrived in Mozambique, met Derek, and they started developing a relationship and built on it over years and years. And they used to talk about someday it would be really nice if we could meet some of the physical needs that the people have in the villages here. And they specifically talked about medical missions as well. And here, 25 years later, it finally came to fruition. So that was really exciting for us this year. You can go next slide. And this is a video, the village that they have in their concession is Musoma. And this was the first landing there in Musoma. Got quite a warm greeting from the village there. It was probably the first time an airplane's landed on that strip in over 20 years. So it was quite a moment for the village there. Next slide. To give you an idea of the wildness of this area, you can see the airplane in the background there. In the foreground, those are elephant footprints. And it's a little bit unusual to be able to see such, pristine footprints. You can see the wrinkles in the pad of the elephant, so that's pretty cool. If you go to the next slide, sometimes it's leopard or lion tracks that I see out there. So I walk this road in the morning while the MOSMED team is having their breakfast, I try to get to the airplane a little early and try to do my inspection and preparation so they're not having to wait on me before we can leave. So this is the kind of environment that we're working in. Next slide. And a visit to the dentist isn't what you might be used to with our sterile dental offices. It's an outdoor adventure sometimes. Mostly what they can do out in the field, the dentist is able to pull teeth, but once in a while we're able to take patients back to Nampula, and they can do some limited surgeries there in Nampula when it's needed. Next slide. This is one of the government clinics where our MOSMED staff serve. This is the village of Matondavela. It's one of our new ones. And you can see the patients are there waiting for their opportunity to see the MOSMED medical professionals. So what the MOSMED team is doing is we're patterning this after Jesus' ministry, where he first met a physical need and then he shared the gospel. And the medical staff are meeting physical needs and building relationships. So these are almost 100% Muslim villages, and so you have to be a little bit careful about bringing the gospel in. You have to build relationship first, so it's a long-term project. And then eventually the desire is that we will gain the privilege from village elders and the community to be able to share the gospel. And pretty excited that this year, 2 of our villages, the elders have given us permission to show the Jesus film. So whenever we start back up, it's rainy season in Mozambique right now, so I can't fly into the airstrips, but April is when we should start back up, and we're really excited that we'll be able to present the Jesus film. Next slide. So while the MOSMED staff is building relationship with the adults, the pilot's ministry ends up building relationship with the children. So normally I will stay at the airplane, and you can imagine when an airplane comes into a remote village, the kids are pretty excited just about the airplane. But over about 6 years now, we've built relationship just hanging out and loving on these kids. We can't do a lot of verbal communication. Most of them speak their tribal language, and then the national language of Mozambique is Portuguese, but many of these children don't start learning Portuguese until they're quite high level of school, and even then it's not very high level. So I usually can't find someone to speak Portuguese, and then their proximity to Tanzania, their trade language is Swahili. And unfortunately, I don't know any Swahili, so we end up just spending time with these children and just kind of loving on them and treating them with respect, which isn't normal for someone that's in a position of authority in Mozambique. You can go to the next slide. One of their favorite activities is to look through the hundreds of pictures that we've taken in the past. So we use iPads in the airplane for various things, and over the years we've just taken lots of pictures. So at some point during the visit, we'll thumb through all the pictures and then spend a little time creating some new ones as well. Next slide. A little bit of game activities once in a while, and I'm looking forward to our new pilot, Josh Brumley. Quite a bit younger than I am, so he kind of has the ability to get involved in the soccer games and things like that, where I'm starting to feel it a little bit. Next slide. At some point during the visit, the pilot will normally walk the airstrip and just check the condition. It's not uncommon for like a warthog or something to come out and start rooting holes in the airstrip, so we'll fill in those little holes. And most of the time, the kids will walk with us. And so it's kind of a fun thing. We can get them involved a little bit. And a funny thing is the kids will usually compete on who gets to hold my hands. So I've usually got a kid on each hand, and it's not uncommon for someone to come up and knock the hand off of one, and then a new one's on me. And something really strange, but they don't have a lot of body hair. Mozambicans don't have a lot of body hair, so my little fuzzy arms, they like to come up and rub my arms, so that's a little funny moment there. Next slide. We have some fun times too. The kids standing next to me wanted to see what it looked like with my reading glasses on, so have little moments. And you'll notice I'm in this picture, so in years past, I was always the one taking the pictures of the kids. And something new this year is a few of the kids like to take my phone, and they end up taking pictures, and it's always a little bit funny to see when I get my phone back, what kind of pictures I ended up with. But a couple of the kids, if it's a kind of a smaller group of kids and they're not being unruly, then we'll start letting them get a few moments in the airplane just for fun. So a couple of boys had a radio, and they decided to put on a little show for me. So we'll play the video. It was really funny. You can go to the next slide. If you wonder if we've had an impact on these kids, one of my MOSMED visits, I had two boys that were super excited to show me the clay airplanes that they had made out of river clay that they had gathered. They even made it where the doors would open and the propellers would turn, so they were pretty excited. So I think you can see we're over the years, we're having an impact on these kids. Next slide. And a new change this year, in the past, when I would walk the airstrip, normally we would turn around and walk right back to the airplane. But this year, every time that I've gotten to the end of the airstrip, they decide to take me on some adventure. So this is an example where they took me off into the bush and showed me some old Portuguese military ruins. You can go to the next slide. They took me on about a half-mile trail down to the river by the village. And next slide. And once we got there, they played some soccer. Some of them played in the water for a while. But it demonstrates that the investment that we've put into the lives of those kids, just building that relationship, we're gaining some trust with them. And you can see the same thing, the MOSMED team with the adults, where we've got permission to show the Jesus film now. Next slide. The picture on the left, this is Ali. He is an older teenager, and sometimes the older teenagers can kind of have a little attitude, a little too cool for school. And a lot of times if there are older teenagers by the airplane, they can kind of ridicule the younger kids for hanging out with me. And so one day Ali was kind of leading the pack, and so I just asked him, would you walk the airstrip with me? And none of the other kids came with us. It was just me and Ali. And so I struck up conversation, fortunately had some Portuguese with Ali, and I learned that his father has health issues, and our MOSMED team actually treats his father. So after that, I asked him, hey, when we're done walking the strip, can we go visit your family? So we went to his house and sat with his family for a while. And just that one gesture of kindness, now Ali doesn't cause any problems for me, but also every time that I visit the village of Gomba, we make a point to connect with each other. So just continuing developing that relationship. The picture on the right, this used to be one of the little girls that would come and hang out the whole time at the airplane. In one visit this year, she was really excited to come and show me her baby. She's a mom now, and she's still quite a young girl, but she's a mom now, and it just shows that we are already getting to influence a new generation, just showing the love of Christ. So that's really cool. Next slide. One of the things I tried this year, I bought a battery-operated projector, and if you're familiar with the Bible Project, I downloaded some of their videos. I found that they have them in Swahili, and I thought this is going to be really cool because the kids just love media stuff, and they're a captivated audience there at the airplane. So I projected some of these videos, and it went really well in the beginning, and then when some of the videos mentioned Israel, all of a sudden I got told these videos aren't good and you can't show them. So it's just enlightening that in a tiny village in the middle of nowhere, there's already some indoctrination on some of that stuff. So fortunately, I've got some leads on some new different material, new videos, and I'm kind of anxious to try that because I really think this idea really has opportunity to plant some seeds in the lives of these kids. So next slide. Sometimes we take a Mozambican missionary with us. His name is Angelino, and when he goes on the Mosmed trips, his role is like hygiene education. So he'll teach kids how to brush teeth and wash hands really well. But he serves with Child Evangelism Fellowship in the city where we live. And so he is very good about always tying in a gospel message when he goes on Mosmed. And when we do show the Jesus film, he will lead that aspect of the project. So we're super excited to get Angelino more involved with Mosmed. Next slide. This slide on the right, this is the director of one of the conservation organizations that we partner with. And him and his wife, and they raise their children in this area as well, extremely remote camp, but they are not believers. And they are within our sphere of influence in serving them with aviation. So sometimes their only opportunity to see Christ is through us. And so we take our relationship with them very seriously and purposefully try to love on that family and just plant seeds in their lives. This picture, I had the opportunity to bring a missionary couple from YWAM. They live about 20 miles apart, and if you understood the remoteness of Nyasa, 20 miles is like really close neighbors. So these people will encounter each other from time to time when Keith, the director, goes to the village where these other couple live. But it was fun to bring neighbors together, but not just neighbors, missionary neighbors with this couple that we are invested in their lives, and just another chance to build relationship and plant seeds. So I thought that was a really cool opportunity. Next slide. More relationship building. The lady in the center with the kind of turquoise greenish colored pants, her and her husband were directors of another camp where we do Mosmed, and I usually overnight at that camp. Her husband accepted a director role at a wildlife park in East Congo in an extremely dangerous area, so his wife stayed in Mozambique. And she and her husband are huge champions of MAF and also our Mosmed project. So while she stayed behind, she is trying to influence the other directors to open up their area to expansion of Mosmed. So that's something we're hopeful in the future is further expansion. And then the lady on the far right, she is a world-renowned ornithologist, so she studies birds. And you can go to the next slide. And we're able to partner with her in developing her studies there. She works on a bird called a honey guide, and it has a very unique relationship with humans. So the honey guide will lead humans to a tree that has honey in it if the honey hunters are the right honey hunters. So the bird makes a call, and the human makes a noise back to the bird, so the bird knows, okay, the chase is on, and so they'll just hop down the trail until they take them to a tree with honey. If a honey hunter from Tanzania comes to Mozambique, they won't make quite the right noise back to the bird, so the bird will know you're not one of my people. And instead of taking them to a tree with honey, they might take them to a tree with a snake in it or something like that. So very, very strange scenario there, but it's fun to participate on projects like this. Jill and I both, our education background is in natural resources, so sometimes I think that God put us there just for us to have that fun connection back to our roots there. But you can go next slide. This is an example of the honey hunters. So somehow over hundreds of years, the birds know that that's a Mozambican honey hunter. So next slide. This year we had a visit from one of our story writers at headquarters, and he came to Mozambique to do a story on our MOSMED project. You can go next slide. And me and him had one opportunity to go out with a lion tracking team from the Mariri camp. And we got within about 30 feet of 3 lions in an open-air vehicle, and it was kind of exhilarating, but a little intimidating as well, you might imagine. But next slide. Here I had the opportunity to fly, the guy on the left is a surgeon, and the guy on the right is a hospital administrator, and they serve in a surgical training hospital in Kenya. And they are looking at opening a surgical training hospital in northern Mozambique where we're located. And they are a Christian ministry, so their training hospital will be a discipleship thing as well, where the students that come in will stay in like a dormitory atmosphere, and it will be at least a year long, so they will really plant seeds in the lives of the students. I took them around, flew them to several different locations, and in this example, we arranged a meeting with Baptist missionaries. So the guy on the left in the center is a Baptist missionary in the city of Nampula where we live, and the guy on the right is up in the northern part where the extremist activity is going on. And I think it was about 2 years ago we evacuated his family out, and just a few weeks after the evacuation, their house was taken over and the school that they operate was burned, and they actually lost one of their Mozambican staff. So it's a privilege to be able to serve missionaries like that, but it is a very serious area where they serve as well. Next slide. Sometimes I get an opportunity to fly Mozambican pastors, and I was flying them to a conference. They don't have a lot of opportunity for biblical training for pastors, so anytime that we can get them off to a conference like that, it really pays dividends when they come back to their church, just a little more educational knowledge. The gentleman standing next to me is the pastor of our church where Jill and I attend. His name is Benedito. Next slide. Another type of flight we do, a lot of medical evacuations throughout the year. Next. And as the pastor mentioned, I'm also a mechanic, so nearly all of the MAF pilots are mechanics, so we do our own maintenance. And this year we hit kind of a major milestone with our Caravan. Every 2,000 hours we have to open up the engine and inspect critical components inside, so we did that this year, and that was a major maintenance event. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jill and let her tell you about her side of ministry with MAF.
So for the last 2 years, I've been MAF's international security manager. So I do the security for all of our programs worldwide. And prior to that, I've been doing the security stuff since about 2018. So I can't remember if we talked about this last time we were here, but there's a direct correlation between insecurity, insecure places, and lostness and unreached people, because a lot of the easy places, they've been reached. So it's the hard places. So it ends up meaning that we end up serving in a lot of complex environments. And so this morning I loved it, gentleman that was speaking, he was talking about how God doesn't need us, but he uses us. And for whatever reason, we have the privilege to be used by God no matter where we are. If we're in the States or we're in Africa, God chooses to use us, but that means we need to be good stewards of our resources, so of our people and our assets when we're overseas in complex environments. So one of the main things I do is training. So we do a security training. So Dave stays in Mozambique usually for about 2 years before he comes back. But I come back to our headquarters, which is in Idaho, about twice a year, and we host a training for all of our new staff that's heading overseas, plus our HQ staff, that finance or IT, somebody that might come visit to support the program, and they're usually the ones that might get into trouble because they don't have the language skills, the cultural knowledge, and things like that. But it's the stress inoculation and let them put skills in practice before they head overseas. Some of the other things I do would be like contingency planning and risk assessments, and then also crisis management. So like when Ryan, our pilot, was detained, having the crisis management team that we just walked through that and worked every angle we could until we could resolve that situation. Yeah, so one of the things I get to do is visit our programs to do some security assessments. So some of you may recognize those are pictures from Haiti. And shortly after this trip, if you watch the news, a lot of Port-au-Prince has just had a lot of issues, and we ended up having to pull our team out of Port-au-Prince, and we spent a lot of energy getting our team back in. I'm happy to say we're back in. We're not in Port-au-Prince. We're in a much calmer, safer area. But one thing that's interesting is, like MAF, a lot of times our purpose with the airplane is to reach isolated places, and it's mountains in the way where there's no roads, but sometimes it's because of dangerous roads. You cannot drive these roads, so the airplane ends up being how people get from place to place because it's just not safe to drive, and that's the case in a lot of locations in Haiti. Next slide. I guess about a year and a half ago, I went to Eastern DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. Super complex place. If you've followed the news recently, it's in the news a lot. We've got a picture there on the left of you can see the road conditions, super muddy roads. On the right from the air, that's a picture of a refugee camp. And I think DRC has more refugees than any other country in the world. And yeah, you can go to the next slide. When we went to a lot of the airstrips that have more complex security issues because where our team is located, it's completely surrounded by different militia groups. There's over 100 different militia groups, and they all have different issues. One might be tribal, one might be Islamic extremism. So there's just different motivations for what could happen. So looking at how can we safely serve these areas. So we talked with the security forces and the UN peacekeepers and the village elders to help figure out how we can serve these areas safely. And then on the picture on the right, we were looking at the security for where our team serves. And so we went and met with the police chief, and it was funny because before I went to Congo, they said, make sure you wear shirts, bring shirts that say MAF because it means something. And it was really interesting. They have a long history, but even the police chief had a family member that had been saved by an MAF flight. So they hated the UN, but the MAF on the shirt or on the car, it meant something, and it was kind of neat to see the impact that the ministry's had over the years in that country. Next slide. And then this last June, I went to Indonesia. So we have programs in Papua, Indonesia. And again, I guess it was in 2021, one of our aircraft got destroyed by rebel separatists just trying to get attention for their cause. So we can't operate in places where stuff like that's going to happen. So figuring out where we shouldn't go or when we can go and getting those protocols in place. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I'm working on, and some of the stuff that not just us, but various mission organizations serving all over the world are dealing with in the places. And I think a lot of people, you don't even think about those things. But next slide. One thing that was fun is in Indonesia, they are landing on sides of mountains and stuff, so it was just very different flying than what we have in Mozambique. But we took these huge pigs. They're alive. They're like tied up. But when they were in the pods, they would move around, and you could feel the whole plane kind of move. It was kind of interesting. But it was just a neat trip and totally different culture. Next slide. So this is pictures of our home church that we go to. And the top right, since we've been there, the 13 years, they've been working on a new building. So little by little, they would build the bricks, lay the bricks, and so what they did is they just built the church around the existing church so that it was a mud brick building that had been kind of stuccoed, and they made the concrete bricks, and just slowly over time, the walls got higher and higher. And so in the last couple of years, you can see in the bottom right, they knocked down the mud bricks. And so we were in the new building, and then the top left, you can see that it's been stuccoed, so it's kind of where we're at now. So it's pretty neat to just see the progression over the years that's happened for the church. Next slide. This one I just share. I teach martial arts, and anywhere I go, I'm like, we're gonna figure out a way to do this. And so I've got kids classes and ladies self-defense. But the reason I put these pictures up is the little guy that's in the yellow shirt, if you can see him, he is the big tall guy that's next to me on the other picture. And that family, they served in Mozambique something like 25 years, and they just left the field, so they moved back to the U.S., which is super sad because three of their boys did the martial arts with me. But anyway, it's a super fun way. It's very international. We got kids from Portugal and Brazil, Mozambique, UK. We've just got a really fun mix that we have, so it's something fun to do. Next slide. So I share this picture mostly just to kind of as a picture of what mission life can be like. You can kind of see the potholes on the road and the chaos of the traffic, but can you see the traffic light? So the red light and the green light are lit at the same time. And that is what it is like, not only driving and getting around, but when you're in an environment where the culture is different, the language is different, we're like, what is going on? And we've been there 13 years, and we still have these what is going on moments. And it's also kind of this coming and going that always happens. We're coming and going, friends are coming and going. It's kind of a picture of just how life can be. And so I just wanted to finish with kind of sharing some prayer requests that we have in particular, and then we can do the question and answer. But one prayer request would be some of the recent unrests that we had in Mozambique. So it's not stuff that makes news here, but we left right around the election time, which was in October. And there was a lot of unrest as a result of the election that was ongoing. And eventually, when it came close to the presidential inauguration, we did pull our team out. And they're back, and it's fine, and it's been calm. But we just pray that things will stay calm there, so we don't have to navigate those issues. And then we have some new families coming in. We're always perpetually short-staffed, so getting visa issues sorted so we can get the new families in and old families back without delay. And then Dave mentioned the MozMed project, so that expansion, it's never simple. It sounds simple, but it's permissions from government officials, it's coordinating with other organizations, it's finding medical staff that can take time off their real jobs to come do the mission work. So it's a lot of moving pieces to make it work. So we just pray for that because we're excited to expand it. So that's all we had. So I think we have enough time for a few minutes for a couple questions.
If anyone has a question, just slip your hand up and I'll be glad to get mine to you.
I have read somewhere that one of the fastest growing religions is evangelical Christianity in Mozambique. And first I want to see if that's been your experience, if that's true in what you've seen. And I know animism is a big thing throughout Africa where they believe that God is in plants and animals and everything. Have you seen that with some of the folks you've worked with, and has that been your experience that there seems to be a foothold here with the gospel?
Well, I think there is a significant difference in the southern part of the country to the northern part. I don't think I mentioned it, but the capital city is at the extreme southern tip of Mozambique, and like I mentioned, it's about twice the size of California. So where we're located, just in distance, is a long ways from the capital city. And down there in the south, there's much more development. Their proximity to South Africa, they have more access to goods, and infrastructure is better. and they tend to think that the northern part of the country is exactly like the southern part, and sometimes that creates bigger problems just in that way of thinking. So in the South, there is much more Christianity, and the church is growing in the South. In the North, I would say that there is maybe a tendency towards growth with Muslim. We're seeing a lot more outside influence from Muslim countries.
Lots of new mosques going up in places where they haven't been, so. Yeah.
But traditionally, they say the country is divided about 50% Christian and 50% Muslim. But like you mentioned, the animism, nearly all of Mozambicans would mix animism with Christianity and Islam. So it's really a strange thing. So to find Christians that are willing to give up the animism and truly follow Christ is somewhat rare. And it's interesting, you know, most of us know that a Muslim, if they give up their Islamic faith, it probably means they're going to be ostracized from their family. And in Mozambique, giving up animism is a very similar thing. So likely if a Christian gives up animism and fully commits to Christ, anytime that there's an illness in the family, it's going to be blamed on that individual that left the animistic stuff. So it is really a big deal for someone to give that up. But I hope that answers big difference north to south.
Are you all required to raise all the money to fund your personal operation annually, or do they fund part of that too, or is it just strictly?
Yeah, so the way MAF as an organization does their missionary support is they do it in a pool system, and it works quite well. So I think Mozambique is a good example. Our housing is less expensive in Mozambique than it is in Haiti, for example. Haiti is way more expensive. And education for school-age children is different in different countries, the expense. So with the pool system, we're all required to raise the same level of support. So even though Jill and I, we do not have children, we still raise the same as a family that has 4 or 5 children that will need education. But it makes it where it's a balance across the board. So someone in Haiti doesn't have an extremely high level, and it just balances out. As far as aviation goes, we do operate as a commercial business, like I mentioned in the beginning. So we do commercial charter flights, and it doesn't work real well in every country, but MAF tries to have their programs be self-sufficient in the operations. So those commercial flights that we do subsidizes all of the mission work we do. So we sort of try to operate as like a nonprofit, even in country. MAF is a nonprofit organization in the United States, but even in country, we try to operate with a nonprofit philosophy. But we do charge much higher rate for the commercial to subsidize our mission flying.
Dave, while they're waiting, what language does the Jesus movie come across in?
I think that it is translated into like 2,500 languages, I think. And Jill and I personally have shown it in, I think, 7 different languages in Mozambique.
On the same topic of language and things of that nature, you showed the video and the pictures of you out with the kids, and you indicated that you don't have a lot of communication with the children, and you kind of talked a little bit about in the clinics and things like that. Just, can you provide, if you don't have, I guess number one, the basic question is, do you have translators, or to what extent do you have translators when you're with locals, whether it be kids or adults? And when you don't have translators, like I seem to have inferred from what you were saying with the kids, how does God manifest himself in that situation to where you can communicate like you said you were?
So normally I do not have a translator. Once in a while I can find, like a teenager that has some broken Portuguese, and we can do a little bit of communication, but even then it's a little too basic to do a lot of gospel stuff. So where I pointed out the Mozambican missionary that goes with us on occasion, Angelino, he is able to do a little more in the tribal languages. And so I will never have the ability to bridge that gap personally. And that's why we bring people along that can do that. And in these village situations, we can't do it every time. I'm usually maxed out in my load limit, bringing the MOSMED team. And so I don't have room to bring like a translator along on those. So we strategically plan time specific, like for showing the Jesus film this coming year. So that's kind of how we do that. Hopefully that answers